describes this process. The poem is about a man who happens to get turned into a donkey, and then it's his first-person narrative of life as a human turned into a donkey. And at one point, he gets sold to a miller and walks into one of these rooms with the millstones. There numerous beasts endlessly turned millstones of different sizes, not only by day, but all night long. The ceaseless turning of the wheels perpetually made flour. I was harnessed to the largest wheel, my head covered with a sack, and I was given a shove along the curving track. There are occasions where it was people doing this back-breaking work, though usually the stones would be quite a bit smaller. Either slaves or the impoverished people who would just do anything for any kind of work. Even one of Rome's most famous playwrights, Plautus, was reduced to doing this work after he lost all of his money in a shipping accident. He would take a hand mill, a quern, and go door to door asking people if they had any grain to be milled. But regardless, once your grain was milled, you could make it into dough. And at the bakery of Popedius Priscus, this was done in the next room over, where he had massive mechanical paddles that would do the kneading. In fact, at his and other large bakeries, there was almost nothing done by hand except for the shaping of the loaves and putting the stamp on them.
I can imagine how advanced this is, and we're talking about Pompeii. Now, don't get me wrong, Pompeii was a very advanced and very successful city when it comes to commerce and trade, also due to the harbor that it's still relatively preserved, so we can observe it, because they used very much also the riverside. With that being said, imagine the sort of millers and bakeries that you would have had in cities such as Capua, Roma, the capital itself, maybe even in the upper class quarters. Goodness gracious.
Were sometimes called signaculum, and were like putting a logo on your product, but less for advertising and more for quality control.
Yeah.
Especially if it was bread that you were really, really proud of, you didn't want other people's inferior bread to be confused with your brand. So you would put your stamp on there and say, this is Max's bread.
And if you think about it, and only we know that kept being a thing throughout history. We have a lot of examples where it was mandated by law to actually stamp your bread. But also with armor, a lot of medieval armor was stamped with the name of the maker. And the similar concept, if you think about it, and sometimes even the name of the guild, if it's part of a guild. Branding has been a thing for a very long time.
Giving out quality bread was very, very important, not only for your business, but it could even get you into public office. There are numerous pieces of graffiti in Pompeii that are endorsing people for public office. And one says, I beg you to elect Gaius Julius Polybius to the office of Aedile. He gives good bread. Other election graffiti in the city includes endorsements like
it's priorities. The chicken vendors request that you elect.
Chicken vendors request that you elect Epidius and Suetius as duovirs. And of course, the city's bakers and millers got in on the endorsements as well, because together they were very strong and influential groups, almost like trade unions of the day. And it really reminds me of that wonderful scene in the first season of the show Rome.
The Guild of Millers uses only the finest grains, true Roman bread for true Romans.
Just like this true Roman bread that should be ready to take out of the oven.
Let's go.
Once baked, remove the bread and make sure it's got a nice color on the bottom, and then let it cool just for a moment before you spread your moretum on top. Remember to use just a little bit because it is very, very garlicky. My entire house smells like garlic right now. Then you can top it with things like white cheese.
Man, you said to use a little bit. You covered that thing completely.
It's pomegranate or whatever else you thought you saw in the fresco. And here we are. The pizza of Pompeii.
That's wonderful.
Now again, they probably would have just taken pieces off of here and just eaten them at first, take a date or pomegranate or whatever and eaten it, and then finished the bread and dipped it with some cheese and everything. But I did a little slice just cause. Why not? Here we go.
Here we go.
So garlicky. Like,
yeah.
to the point of spiciness when you have so much garlic, but it's actually delicious. But it is garlicky. I actually want to just try the bread because
Yeah,
it does kind of overwhelm. I put too much garlic on there.
Yeah, that's the American you. When you're like, put a little bit, and then it's good.
Or not too much garlic, too much of the moretum.
Yep.
That bread is so flavorful. True
Nice.
Roman bread for true Romans,
Is it
indeed,
sweet?
or for true Maxes. But I also think that like if you have it with other things, I'm trying to, you can't see this, I'm trying to grab a, I've got some cheese on there, the moretum, and some pomegranate.
Yeah.
That sweetness
Nice.
cuts through.